10th, 2021 regular meeting of the Pinehurst Village Council. I'm Mayor John Strickland. I welcome you here. Looking from my left and your right, Councilmember Jane Hogeman, Councilmember Judy Davis, Councilmember Kevin Drum, Councilmember Lydia Bosch, and our village manager Jeff Sanborn are present today. And I've called the meeting to order. There are several people, staff and others in the hall today. And I know there are others who are listening to this on a live stream. If you have comments and you're listening from outside the room, if you have comments you'd like to have distributed to the Village Council and staff today, you may submit those to public comments by email, publiccomments@vopnc.org, publiccomments@vopnc.org. Those will be distributed by the village clerk to members of the Village Council after today's meeting. Those of you in attendance have the opportunity to comment at the end of the regular meeting before we start our work session. With that, I'd like to move into village reports, and I'll start with our manager, Jeff Sanborn. Jeff?
Thank you, John. Just one thing I'd like to comment on. I'm pleased to announce that we have hired Doug Willardson to be our next assistant village manager, along with Jeff Batten. Doug will be joining us from Webster, Massachusetts, where he is currently the city administrator, which is the Massachusetts equivalent of a city manager. In addition to that role, he's been an assistant city administrator in Massachusetts and has local government experience in Utah and California. So he brings a very diverse background to the community. And so we're looking forward to his arrival on the 7th of September. I was excited to learn a few days ago that he's already found a place for he and his family to live, at least initially. So they're starting to make that transition. Looking forward to his arrival. Thanks.
Jeff, that's great news, and we look forward to meeting Doug in due course and other hires that are pending at some point in various departments. Thanks for your leadership. Comments from myself. Unfortunately, the first comment I'll make today has to do with COVID-19. It's no secret that there are problems developing across the county, across the state, across the country. We feel relatively safe here in Pinehurst at the moment, but Jeff and I have talked a little bit last week about how this may develop, and we'll be very sensitive to concerns in the community and any risks to village staff and council members and the public going forward as to how we meet. But we're happy we're able to meet in person today, and we'll evolve on that subject as time goes along. Hopefully, we'll continue to be able to meet in person. During the last few weeks since our last meeting, my report really is I've had some informal, off-the-cuff discussions with members of the Historic Preservation Commission, the chair, and Eric Van Salzen, and also with Cindy Burnett, the chair of the Planning Board, just to review how they are, what they're doing, and I'm hoping that we can get a joint meeting with the Historic Preservation Commission sometime in September, potentially at our September 14th meeting, but we need to talk about that with staff and see if that plan can happen. I attended Coffee with a Cop last week, which was a very nice event, and we hope to do that again in the village at a spot yet to be determined. And also I had the chance during U.S. Kids Golf to meet Dan Van Horn, who is the founder of U.S. Kids Golf, and I really thanked him for the business that he's brought to Pinehurst and Moore County generally with their offices, their course at Longleaf, and of course the amateur tournaments that they provide every summer. Dan is a real golf entrepreneur, emphasizing family and kid golf fun as a unit, and it's really a wonderful opportunity that we have every year to have that tournament here in Pinehurst. Earlier today, very early today, Councilmember Drum and I attended the monthly Partners in Progress meeting. I think Kevin will have a few things to say about that meeting and his comments, but it was very well conducted and some interesting new thoughts and commentary about business in Moore County and where we should be going and issues we have to face. With that, I'd like to call on Mayor Pro Tem Judy Davis for any comments and reports she has to make.
Just have a couple of comments, and I'll echo your comments about the severity of the COVID-19 Delta variant. Many of you know Dan Barnes, who heads the Fiscal the physicians group for the First Health. He, a fully vaccinated person, recently contracted COVID and had a pretty severe reaction, including a heart rate over 100, which caused him to check out some outpatient capabilities. He received the antibody infusion and really quickly rallied after that. But 2 fully vaccinated people, exchanged COVID-19. So I think we can't be too careful. I see Tony Elms in the audience with a N95 mask. I just ordered a new supply yesterday. So I think we'll be thinking about masking up and really taking a lot more cautions as we go forth in the fall, and as long as this is such a virulent and very infectious variant. The other thing I want to remind people about is that starting next Friday night, we have Shakespeare in the Pines at Tufts Green for next weekend and the following weekend. A wonderful production, always very exciting talent from students from UNC Pembroke and other local residents. So take time to go outside and watch that. And what should be a cool week next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Kevin Drum?
I report on, because I attend the Triangle J, Council of Governments, Partners in Progress, and North Carolina Department of Transportation with John, but something interesting that happened at Triangle J, and kind of unrelated directly with them, but there's an extension of the Ford and Trade Zone south of us. Somehow they're connecting the Ford Trade Zone that connects into South Carolina with the Triangle. I don't know how that will impact it, but I just find it interesting. If we ever did have an opportunity, it might be a continuous foreign train zone. I don't know if that would ever occur, but it might help Partners in Progress. Going next, we attended Partners in Progress meeting this morning, the first one fully conducted by Natalie. Impressive. She gave a great 20,000-foot level statistical analysis of where we're at. But I thought the most interesting thing was that half the workers travel from outside the county because they have no housing can't afford the housing here, so they travel from outside the county to here. So that might explain a little bit about our traffic if half the people going to work are coming from outside our county. Also, they are working on an entrepreneurial hub in Carthage in the old Buggy building. They got a grant. No, it's not fully a done deal. It's real close. They have formed a kind of a board, and they asked me to serve on it. So I'm going to be serving on the entrepreneurial hub board and Partners in Progress. So that's going to be exciting because I'm a recovering entrepreneur. We always meet with North Carolina Department of Transportation, John, and Jeff, but this time we've invited them to come visit us. So we get them on our turf next Monday. And so, like I say, we're having real good discussions with them, and I like that they're coming to us. That completes my report.
Thank you, Kevin. Lydia?
Thank you, John. I have a report I'd like to read from Phil Wirtz. Phil is the president and CEO of Pinehurst Southern Pines Aberdeen Area Convention Visitors Bureau. We ended the 2021 fiscal year with a record $2.2 million in collections, breaking the previous record from 2018 to 2019 by 16.3%. This is another startling number. Occupancy in Ward County for June, which was the last report, was 80.5%. He said this is absolutely unheard of. He followed that up by saying, "This destination is on fire. I don't see it subsiding either."
Thank you, Lydia. From Phil Wirtz, right?
Phil Wirtz.
Right, thank you.
No, I'll give this to you.
Yeah. Jane Hogeman, please.
Yes, the Beautification Committee met about a week ago or so, and they reported that the village is working on a landscape facelift for the village center, and they're also working on landscape on the northern part of Route 5 near 211. So it's great.
A very active committee where their actions are highly seen, and it's very important that we fund that. Moving along then to agenda item number 3, motion to approve the consent agenda. Before I ask for the motion, are there any issues in the reports in the consent agenda that a council member would like to pull out or question or have any information additional? Anything on that?
John, may I make one comment, please?
Please.
First, I want to thank the police chief for giving us really good notes every month, but there's one note I think people would be interested in. He said, in sum, we live in a very safe village. To me, that says two things. We live in a very safe village, which is comforting. But it's also a credit to our police department, to our chief, and to his officers that we live in a safe village. So I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Kevin, your microphone's off. You want to do that one more time? Push the button there.
Again,
Do that again, please.
I move to approve all the items listed and considered routine on the consent agenda.
Motion by Kevin Drum. Is there a second? Second by Judy Davis. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. Working then down to item number 4, Resolution 21-15, reappointing Tom Campbell to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I don't see Tom here tonight. We don't necessarily need him here. Is there any discussion by members of the council with respect to that reappointment? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
I'll move to reappoint Tom Campbell to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Motion by Jane Hogeman. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Lydia Bosch, was that? And all in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That reappointment is made. And Jeff, I made a note. I think there's a staff appointment we need to do on that committee also in the near future, is there not?
Is there what?
Isn't there a staff committee, maybe it's Mark, that needs to be officially reappointed at some point?
No, I think that after we went back and looked at that, we're okay.
Okay, okay,
Mark? Yeah, yeah.
all right. So no further action in the near term on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 5, Resolution 21-16, reappointing Richard Vincent to the Historic Preservation Commission. I would preface this by saying that Mr. Vincent has served obviously 3 years on the commission. And when I was speaking to Eric von Solson, which I referenced a little earlier today, he wanted me to underscore the fact that the board and he as chairman are very interested that Richard be reappointed. Is there any discussion by council on that? Is there a motion to reappoint Richard Vincent to the Historic Preservation Commission?
I move to approve Resolution 21-16, reappointing Richard Vincent to the Historic Preservation Commission for a 2-year term expiring on August 31st, 2023.
There's a motion by Judy Davis. Is there a second, please?
A second.
Second by Lydia Bosch. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously too. That will move us right into agenda item number 6, and I'll call on our village manager to introduce that, please.
Thank you, John. And Brooks making your way forward to present this. This is a matter of housekeeping. We do this every year at this time as we transition from one fiscal year to the next. Invariably, there are, a short list of projects, if you want to call them projects, that we were not able to complete in the previous fiscal year, but which we do intend to complete. And so we ask you to entertain this opportunity to roll those funds forward from the FY21 budget to the 22 budget. Brooke?
Perfect, thank you. As Jeff mentioned, this is a routine item that we bring to you each year, and it's to roll forward funds, in this case, from fiscal year 2021 to fiscal year 2022 for 3 categories of items. The first being projects that were started but not yet complete as of June 30th. The second being projects that were not started at all due to various timing delays. And the third being unspent donated funds that have either restrictions by donors or by the federal or state funding. Those funds have to be used for a particular purpose, and so we roll forward those funds so that they can be used in that manner. All of the appropriations for these items lapse at the end of the year, and they add to our fund balance. This amendment essentially goes back into our fund balance and reappropriates those funds so that they can be used in the manner that they were originally intended in fiscal year 21. So we have a list of items for your review and consideration tonight. The total amount of reappropriations this year is $1,420,677,000. That is higher than normal, but there were a few very large purchases and projects this year that I'll mention in a moment that caused it to be so much larger than a typical year. I do want to mention that our departments did work very hard to complete as many projects as possible this year. Some delays just were not able to be avoided. I'll cover some of the larger items in the amendment, the first of which being the fire engine, which is the most significant, along with the funds to purchase equipment for that fire engine when it arrives. So it was ordered in January or February of this year. It takes about a year to build. And we are anticipating that it will arrive in early 2022, hopefully by February. And then it will have to be equipped with the appropriate equipment when it arrives. That comprised $650,000 of the $1.4 million, so the largest piece of it. Another significant project is the Magnolia Streetscape project. Funds for those are requested to be carried forward since the project was not complete as of June 30th. A lot of work had been done, but it had just not been finalized. Also, the Rattlesnake Trail and Woods Road sidewalk project that will connect the community center to Pinehurst Elementary School is requested to be carried forward. If you've driven past there, some materials are on site. The contractor is just waiting for identification of utilities and hopes to begin that work soon. Also, the structured parking at Cannon Park is being carried over as well. At the harness track, we had funding for several projects that were originally planned for fiscal year 21 that were just not able to be completed. And those are painting barns, sewer connections, track clubhouse repairs, barn siding replacement, and barn bathroom remodels. Part of that is due to contractor availability. To complete those projects, we have a very limited window of opportunity in which we can perform repairs of this nature when horses are not on site. So that in combination with some contractor staffing issues, I think we've experienced that across the board as a result of COVID, just having staff available for contractors to perform that work. But we're requesting to roll forward those funds with the hope of completing that work, or at least a large portion of it, before this upcoming training season. And the last larger item is rolling forward the small area plans contract. So the remaining funds on that contract, move it forward just to complete that item. I do want to mention that excluding the three top largest items, that is the fire engine, sidewalk project, and the parking lot, if you exclude those items, the roll forward would be around $451,000, which is very comparable to prior years, and I did want to make that very clear. There is an ordinance available for your consideration tonight, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And I do have a few department heads in the audience in case there are any specifics. I'll request backup.
Thank you, Brooke. Are there questions from the council? Lydia?
I have a couple of questions. One related to this, the siding at the barn. What kind of siding is that?
Mr. Wagner,
Mark's
would
on
you
his
approach
way.
the microphone, please?
It's white.
Oh, I feel so much better. I thought it was
that settles
purple.
it.
Yes, Mark?
Will be
That's a
white
good
with
point,
green
Lydia.
trim, yes, but it's a German lap siding. It's very similar to the material that's on site now,
Okay.
depending on the barn. Now, if it's a cinder block barn or a metal barn, we've typically been replacing those with the lap siding, so they matches the other barns out there. But the ones that we're doing are wood, and it'll go back as wood.
Okay, so was that the original siding? Was wood the original siding for those barns?
It may very well be the
Okay.
original siding from some of those barns, yes, which is why we need to repair them.
And then I've got a second question that really doesn't pertain to this, but, we're now less than a month and a half into our fiscal year, and we all see what inflation's doing. And so what does that do going forward? And I was talking to Jeff about this earlier. If, we budget certain amounts, but if inflation is going to make us spend more, how do we go into fund balance? Have we had a situation like this before where we had extraordinary inflation that happened, that kicked in right after we approved, right after the budget kicked in?
I don't know of a specific situation in which we've experienced this, but we have had issues over the years in which a project just comes in over the amount that we've budgeted. And if that is the case, we have a couple of options. The first being to look at our current budget to see if there are projects that we have decided not to pursue in the year, and we could redirect those funds to a particular project. Or we also have the option of bringing forth a budget amendment and dipping into fund balance as needed for those one-off items.
Yeah.
I can maybe add to that as well. As Brooke said, for specific projects or purchases, we might have to bring them back to you for a budget amendment because we just can't wicker it any other way. In the aggregate, I think what you're going to see happen is that at the end of, you're all familiar with the concept of the budget to actual variance, right? Concept is we typically don't spend all of what we budget for various reasons, kind of like what we just talked about. In the aggregate, what you'll see is that if inflation remains as high as it is, when we close out the budget next year, the budget to actual variance will be smaller.
Thanks. And I didn't expect a firm answer, but I do see this as something that we're likely going to face because of what's happening with inflation. And like I said, we're not even a month and a half into our fiscal year. Okay.
Something to keep an eye on.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks, Jeff.
Other questions from council members for Brooke? Jeff, maybe I can ask one question of you related to my favorite item, the fire engine. Remind me, we're replacing an engine with this new one, is that correct? Or is this going to be in addition to the equipment of the department?
Replacement, yeah.
Replacement. And what is it? It's not a ladder truck, I know it's a pumper or a regular old fire truck. All right, thank you. Brooke, any other comments from you then on these requests? All right, I believe we have a motion to approve these carry forwards. Is there a motion on that item?
I move to approve ordinance 21-13, reappropriating funds from the fiscal year 2021 budget to the fiscal year 2022 budget.
That's a motion by Judy Davis. Thank you, Judy. Is there a second, please?
I'll second that.
Kevin Drum has seconded the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries as well. We'll move to item number 7 on the agenda. Discuss and consider a resolution authorizing the sale of surplus capital assets. Jeff? Over to Brooke.
Yeah, go ahead, Brooke.
Sure, I'll take this one too. We currently operate under Village Ordinance 17-02, which authorizes the village manager to sell certain surplus items with estimated market values of less than $10,000. Most of the items we sell are well below this threshold. We do utilize the village's GovDeals website and to sell all of these items, and it's an electronic auction site that's similar to eBay. We sell all the items that we no longer have a need for, and at this time we have one item that may potentially reach the $10,000 market value, and that is a 2006 International 4300 garbage truck. So this item may potentially reach the threshold, and we just want to make sure that we have clear authority from you all to sell this item. So we have a resolution for your consideration tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
So we're trying to get rid of the trash. Is that the idea?
That's it.
Okay,
That's it.
good.
And this is also a replacement too, I'll
Yeah.
mention,
Thank
obviously.
you. Good. Questions on this particular item? Lydia?
Yeah, it's a question I raised over the weekend. It's the $10,000 threshold limit, and I don't know if it's something we could decide now, but Do we want to raise that level for the village manager? It's my understanding this has been around since 2017, and prices have increased, and Jeff has some higher authorization levels than 10,000, so I was just wondering if it made sense just to raise that. But that was just my question.
I think it's something to consider. Let's take care of the motion, and then that's a policy issue, which sounds like it should happen, but we'll wait for Jeff and the staff to come back to us on that if they like to.
If we did raise it, do you have a recommendation? Not that we are, but.
Sure. The state statute allows that limit to be raised to 30,000. And so you could raise it up to that. And there are plenty of local governments that do utilize that threshold, but you are able to set anywhere in between or none at all.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. If staff wishes us to take action, bring us something to
Yeah.
think about.
We're not taking it.
That's fine.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Brooke. Is there a motion on this item then, on the sale of assets?
I move to approve resolution 21-17, authorizing the village manager to dispose of certain surplus capital assets for the village of Pinehurst.
That's a motion by Kevin Drum. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Jane Hogeman. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Brooke, thank you very much. All right, we'll move on into item number 8, which is an update on the status of the fiscal year 2021 Strategic Operating Plan implementation. I believe we have Joe Lazuski to speak to us about that. Jeff, would you like to introduce this a bit further?
Sure, thanks, John. This is something we do, again, this is every year at this time. This is to give you a kind of basically, this is the closeout of our FY21 plan and how we performed in accordance with that plan. And this is something that Lauren would have done, but we don't have a Lauren right now. And I'm
We have
thankful
Jill.
that Jill has agreed to pitch this to you. So go ahead, Jill.
Great, thank you.
Bill, thank you very much.
Members of the Village Council, I'm here to present the fiscal year 2021 Strategic Operating Plan update. This update covers the timeframe of July 1, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. As a reminder to everyone, the Village Council adopts a strategic operating plan each year, which indicates the village's plans to achieve our vision and our mission. In addition, we use a balanced scorecard approach to measure our performance. And as we reported, the FY 2021 Strategic Operating Plan includes 7 initiative action plans, or IAPs, scheduled for this year. If you'll turn to page 3, we have the strategic opportunities that correlate with our strategic objectives. And these were prioritized last year during the strategic planning retreat. Basically, all of them are in progress with the exception of 3 that have been completed this year, implementing the GIS strategic plan, evaluating, identifying, and purchasing the land for a future 3rd fire department, or fire station, and in addition, we have budgeted already for a transportation planners. Those are complete and the others are in progress. Now on page 4, you can see the color-coded overview of the IAPs and associated metrics. As of June 30th, 1 initiative action plan was in progress and on schedule. 4 were in progress but not on schedule, and 2 were completed in 2020. The 3 action plans not completed as originally planned were the small area plans for Village Place and Highway 5. They are in progress, as you know, and they've begun phase 3 of that contract. The planning and inspections process improvements should be completed this fall with the execution of GIS training by our IT department and council approval of a PDO amendment relating to the new P&I software. In addition, the workforce learning and development will be carried over into FY22. It did experience some delays due to the COVID protocols, and also they had a heavy focus this past year, or past spring in particular, of heavy recruiting requirements and so forth. Now moving on to the metrics just below, 4 achieved their projected performance this year and 3 did not. But what I'd like to do is, if on the back page is the details of those metrics, and I can just talk to, in particular, the 3 that did not meet their metrics, their goals. 1 is the update to the PDO. As you're aware, 1 PDO amendment was approved just earlier in July, so it wasn't in the fiscal year, and another one has been presented, so it is still in progress. The small area plans, the metric was the number of participants who attended meetings or viewed information on Engage Pinehurst to help participate in those plans, and we fell just 5% short of the goal of achieving 750 participants, so it wasn't too far off. And the last one was the average number of days to issue single-family permits for new construction and additions and alterations, and we felt just a little short, well, we were a little bit above at 11.83 days to approve those plans instead of 11. But I think now that we have our second planning and zoning specialist on board, I think that we are likely to see a big improvement in that area. So that pretty much concludes my report, but I am happy to take any questions that you might have.
I think we may have a few questions on this update, Jill. Thank you very much. Any comments from council, though? Questions for?
One more,
Didn't we have?
the attract and retain and engage workforce too, on the last page.
Yes, yes, that metric was met, which was great by a significant number, percentage. The percentage of vacancies filled with internal candidates, the goal was 35%, but we've actually filled those with 47% this year. And like I said, that IAP is just a little bit behind schedule because of COVID and so forth. But the metric did very well.
Jill, I think you said, and it's right here, I'm looking at the Stormwater Master Plan. So the RFQ went out on June 25th. Here we are, August whatever. And to your knowledge, has that, so we would have received back initial responses, I guess, on that, and that's going to help move this project along during well, certainly during this fiscal year and into the future.
Yeah, I don't know the status of that.
Got
Mike,
Mike
I
here.
see Mike is here, yeah. How are we doing on that, Mike?
We received 6 submittals from firms a few weeks ago. We are going through those. We have a team reviewing those, and we hope to have a selection made and bring a contract to you with a selection at your next meeting in September.
Oh, well, there's the answer to the question right there. Good. Thank you, Mike. And what else is likely to move out of the red into the yellow anyway here? I guess the PDO, that's going to start coming along. I'm looking for Darren over here and Alex. I know they're anxious to get that going.
And I would comment, the small area plan for FY21, in accordance with the FY21 plan, is, it's behind schedule. We knew about that, though, when we built the 22 plan. As you know, it's already in the 22 plan as well. So it's red, it's behind schedule for last year's plan, but we're on track right now.
Any other comments, Jeff, on the overall report here that you want to update on?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Any questions from council? All right.
Just an observation, and sort of the public might want to hear this too. A future OFI that addressed strategic opportunities has developed a comprehensive plan for mitigating future traffic on Highway 5. That begs the question, how are we going to attack that? But the good news is it is on our radar, and it's listed here. So how we attack it, I don't know, but it's good to know.
I would say that Highway 5 is always on our radar. And in fact,
John?
we, on the meeting that's coming
We have a
up
meeting on
next
Monday
Monday,
with
that's,
Department of Transportation.
yeah, one of the subjects that we'll be talking to them about, as we always do, is, projects for Highway 5 and how that, are there some things we could do ahead of schedule, how the schedule of the DOT works. Jeff?
I was just going to add that John and I and Lauren, before she left, had spent some time brainstorming a methodology and approach that might involve kind of building a task force to look at the comprehensive Highway 5 problem set. So.
Yeah. In fact, and it's a good reminder, all the council will remember, and some of you in the room who attend our planning meetings, that we decided at the last, it was really the last retreat or preparation for this fiscal year 22 budget. I think that was the meeting, that we set up a evaluation task force. It was Lauren's idea to begin to consider the traffic issues that affect all of us, but particularly the Highway 5 and core village area, but all the things that around Pinehurst people have on their minds. So that's been delayed as far as complete implementation, but it's on our list of things we hope to address this year. And I look forward to moving on that with you, Jeff.
We have agreement from a couple of outside folks that might help us as well, John May and,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. In fact, there are some individuals who have some expertise. You mean John McLean, I think.
John McLean and Tarpo.
Set it up.
Yeah.
What I got you.
The point is, we've already sought some input from sources we think could provide interesting information, who have some background in the transportation business here in this state and elsewhere. So that will always be moving, I think. All right. Any other comments or questions on this report from Jill then? Seeing none, shall we move on into item number 9? Judy, did you have a question? No. Item number 9, Jeff, go ahead, please. On the SIA intensity allocation.
There's Darren. Okay, we've got one special intensity allocation for you to, request for you to consider, and this is in Trotter Hills.
Mm-hmm.
All right, council, thank you. This is an SIA allocation of approximately 1.04 acres in the, sorry.
Do you want to sit out there and have someone else run the, whatever you like, Darren? Hate to have you standing all the time.
Technology.
Bring it up. Yep, thank you.
All right. So the staff, let me pull up the staff memo. So this is an SIA request of approximately 1.04 acres of property at 95 Trotter Hills. The property is located within the WS2 Watershed Protection District. What the request is to remove that from our watershed balance of approximately 753 acres in order to allow movement, development of a property within that, on that property. So I'm going to go down to the subject location. This is the subject location. It's located in the Trotter Hills Business Park. Here's NC5, Highway 5. This is Trotter Hills coming in. The property right here is currently undeveloped at 95 Trotter Hills. I'll pull up the proposed site plan here in a moment. It's asking me for all this good stuff. All right. So the proposed site plan, this, now I'm going to have to rotate this so you can see it better. Technical difficulties. All right, here is the site plan. So here's Trotter Hills Drive coming in. This is the street that intersects with NC5. This is the proposed single-story office building. It's double-loaded with parking on either side of the building. One parking lot goes out to Trotter Drive. One parking lot goes out to Trotter Hills Circle. Currently at present, within the OP zone, the maximum impervious limit is 70%. They're within that range. I think they're coming in around 54%. But what the watershed restrictions are, based in this watershed, they're limited to, was it, Alex, 12% built upon area. That's why the SIA request is moving forward. If this SIA request is granted forward, that 1.04 acres comes out of our balance, and the development can move forward as proposed. As part of the PDO requirement, the Pinehurst Development Requirement Ordinance, PDO, the applicant in getting an SIA allocation will have to provide BMP, best management practices, for stormwater control on that site. In this particular case, the BMP being proposed will be a detention basin on site on the south here at Trotter Drive. So you can see here's Trotter Drive. This is the driveway coming in. That basin will be placed here. So everything will be designed essentially to drain to that basin and detain the water, the stormwater. Here is the second drawing. The second drawing shows kind of the configuration of what that basin is going to look like. You can see the pipes, the sewer pipes and such draining to it. So at the end, well, I'm trying to get back to here. Where am I at? here we go. At the end, if council does grant if council does grant the SIA allocation, it will allow the development to move forward at 95 Trotter Hills Drive, the NC Development Child Development Services. And they will be required to use the best management practices. You can see the chart right here. This shows the chart of all the previous SIA allocations. If this is a grant, if the SIA is granted, this 1.04 will take the balance from 752 acres, 0.074, down to 751.034 acres. So with that, council may approve through motion. Any questions?
Stormwater, number of years, is it 10-year?
I think the design on this is 10 years. They tried to accommodate the 25-year, but they could not make the 25-year work, apparent, from what we're told.
I'm sorry, Darren, would you repeat what you just said, please?
It's meeting the minimum, our minimum requirement, which is a 10-year storm. They had looked at trying to design a 25-year, but they couldn't make it work from an engineering standpoint.
They tried, okay.
Aaron, what is a dry detention stormwater basin? It's not a chamber system, is it?
It's the opposite of a wet detention basin.
All right, I know rock
So-
basins and I know chamber systems. Is it either of those?
No, it's essentially it's essentially a holding pond. It'll hold water during the storm, and it will slowly release that water down during the storm. Correct, Mike? Here comes Mike. He's going to save me.
Question.
That's correct. It's intended to be dry, under dry conditions, and when it rains, it will fill up. In this case, they've decided to utilize an infiltration basin, and it'll simply infiltrate into the ground, and they're holding enough to accommodate the 10-year storm event. And I will say, too, to add, when they were looking at the 25-year storm as well, they did not meet that. They did get a soils report done for this site, and the soil scientist that I talked to on it said it was the fastest infiltrating site he had ever seen before.
Okay.
So I feel confident that even though we're at
Yeah.
the 10-year storm event, I don't foresee any stormwater issues on the site.
Going to be a de facto 25-year.
I hope so.
Possibly. Yeah,
Correct.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike, could you just stay there just for a second? I'm always curious when we have these SIAs.
SA.
You've just said that the dry drainage pond was analyzed and determined to be the fastest draining dry pond that this person had seen, correct?
Soil,
Sorry?
soil.
Soil,
That's
yeah.
what our soil.
No, I
scientist-
understand.
soil scientist
So,
said.
if that's the case, what's the relationship between that fact and the inability to achieve the 25-year storm requirement? Or is there a link there in my mind?
Yeah, the 10 and the 25, you have to look at the capacity of the basin, how much you can hold, and then actually how much it will infiltrate into the ground. In this case, I believe the number that they got that it would infiltrate was like 39 inches per hour, which was as high as I've ever seen around here. I worked with the developer's engineer on that. I said I would suggest using something a little more conservative because we haven't seen a rate that high around here. And I think she actually reduced that to like 4 inches per hour, which is typical from what we've seen in the area. So I think she's built that into it. I don't know if you go and look at the 39 inches per hour for it to actually meet the 25-year storm, but that was so high. We never see that number around here, even though that's what a licensed soil scientist saw here. I recommended that she cut that down to have a little bit of a safety factor in that as well. But it's not just the infiltration rate, it's the size of it. In this case, they're limited a little bit to size in that southwest corner of the property, and they're maximizing the use there in order to get the basin as big as they can.
A related question for Darren or yourself is this. This is, well, in the last few months, this is the second request we've had from Trotter Hills in the past few months. I think it was even just March or April, right? And there's been other construction, obviously, on that site over the past 10 years, probably, I guess, or more. And I don't recall, it's probably on the list, what other locations have had allocations. I guess the point I'm driving at is in the collective recommendations and the allowances that we're making, are we leading into a stormwater problem in this area? Because this area joins single-family and multifamily housing, if I recall, and it kind of flows down to the west off Trotter Hills, I believe. And I'm wondering if this starts, are we setting ourselves up for any kind of other problem with property owners? Is this all these retention basins, stormwater management techniques, are they going to protect the surrounding neighborhoods from all the commercial, small as it is, construction in this site, Trotter Hills?
Well, the way I guess I would answer that is they all meet our current design standard, which is a 10-year storm event. I know there's Pinehurst Coins has a pond there. The Huntley Building just constructed their own pond. The Dental Building did. So they're all in compliance with our current standards. They all meet at least a 10-year storm event. I think some went to a 25 as well. So I don't have any concerns with it causing any issues downstream, since they each have their own retention ponds on site or method of maintaining their stormwater on site.
So and the release of that stormwater is controlled, so the rate at which it leaves the site is controlled. The other thing I would add is that every single property, from my knowledge, within Trotter Hills is going to need an SIA allocation, because having I think it's within that watershed, having a 12% is impractical to develop on any of these properties without getting the watershed allocation or the SIA allocation.
Should we be, I don't know, not rezoning it, but changing our requirement there for some reason? Or do we need to have this safety valve? It is a safety valve for us to have the allocations made and the stormwater management requirements. So I guess it all nets out. I just sort of thinking, do we ever look holistically at the whole site and all the things we're approving, especially with stormwater, because we're always concerned about that? Is this going to lead to some other problem? I guess not.
Yeah, I would say if that commercial development was done today, under today's standards, it would probably be different in that you would have the roads and each of the lots there and probably have a centralized stormwater management system for the entire, subdivision. It wasn't done like that. So that's why each lot has to have its own. So I feel comfortable with how it's developed from a stormwater perspective, but it's, certainly something we'll keep an eye on too.
And to add on to that, the SIA allocation itself requires the use of BMPs. So it requires the additional use of the best management practices. So I think those two combined with our own requirements should mitigate any of those problems that you might envision.
Well, that's helpful. I'm struck too by the fact that as we're talking about small area plans, maybe we need to be thinking about big stormwater management systems in the two small areas, let alone other places as we go forward. Anyway, any other questions from council on this particular issue? Jane?
It looks to my eye, which, just looking at it, that the impervious coverage is more than 50% of the site. Am I missing something here?
I think it's at 54%.
Yeah, but it looks like more than 50. Doesn't it look like it's a lot more than 54%? I mean, maybe it's the driveway aprons that are doing it, but
I think it's at the proposed impervious area sitting at 53.5%. It just, sometimes it can be a perception thing, how you're looking at it. A lot of times it looks like it's more dense than it really is, but these are all based on sealed surveys.
and if this SIA request is granted, it's for the 53.4% and not for 70%, is that right?
The SIA is separate from that. The SIA just grants relief from the watershed requirements. The governor at that point then becomes the OP impervious requirement or impervious cap, which is 70%.
From the zoning.
Yeah, the zoning becomes the impervious governor after the watershed.
Kevin?
It's funny, I have a different thought. I thought because they're all managing their own stormwater, it's the same as having a large stormwater system, and it's protecting that that area we have behind it that is kind of, a deep hole where residents live. So I don't know, I feel like this does protect the people back there. Would you agree with that?
I would,
Yeah, because everybody's, handling their own water and they're not kicking the can down the road. So, I mean, I feel like everyone taking care of their own water is the same as having a large system to me. Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be true. Okay, any other questions for Darren or Mike? Seeing none, do we have a motion on this? Yes, we do. Motion on item number 9, please.
I move to approve the proposed special intensity allocation as outlined in the staff memorandum dated August 4th, 2021, for the proposed North Carolina Child Development Services Office on approximately 1.04 acre property at 95 Trotter Hill Circle in the Watershed 2 district. If development approval shall expire, this SIA shall be rescinded and the allotted allocation shall be returned to the pool for future allocation.
Thank you, Judy. That's a motion by Judy Davis. Is there a second, please?
Second.
That's a second by Lydia Bosch. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you all very much. That will move us into item number 10, which is other business. I'll start with the village manager. Is there any other business that staff have to bring to this meeting tonight?
Thank you for the opportunity to alibi, John. When I said John May earlier, the person I was thinking of was Matt Day from Tarpo.
Matt Day, yes.
Yeah, Matt
From-
Day.
Yeah, good. That's exactly right. Just who I was thinking about, yes. Is there any other business to bring to the regular meeting? Seeing none, we'll move on into public comments. Are there attendees here who would like to speak to the village council tonight? I don't see anyone signed up, but I'm happy to take any comments from the floor. I think we're checking, is there a list there, Kelly? No. All right, seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn the regular meeting and move into our work session?
I move to adjourn the regular meeting.
Motion by Lydia Bosch to adjourn the regular meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Jane Hogeman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. We'll move immediately into our work session for the night, which has several important topics on it.